Mr Speaker.
Portal Williams.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take a call on the Passports Amendment Bill number 2. Over the last couple of days, Mr Speaker, and again later in the House today, I have been speaking a bit about passports and about the quality of citizenship. Passports are, as my colleague Mr Ruriwhai says, a taonga. They are important to us and they do differentiate us from other people around the world, and they are well sought after by those unscrupulous people who would take our passports off us, because having a New Zealand passport allows us to travel to many countries of the world where other passports may not take those holders. We do support this bill to select committee, and there are a few components of this bill that I'm hopeful the select committee will spend some time reviewing and refining and coming back to us with some answers for. Thank you. The most significant part of this bill, sir, is the validity period and moving that from 5 years to 10 years. And as my colleague has already said, that really has come about by public pressure. New Zealanders not really enjoying the shortened 5-year period of their passports. We are great travellers, being right down here at the end of the world. We do a lot of travelling, and the renewal period is quite prescriptive, being at 5 years. It's interesting, the issue around the cost. The Minister has made various statements in the public arena about the cost remaining, the cost being set at $180, and this reflecting really the cost savings over the period of time, moving the validity period out from 5 to 10 years. And that's a very interesting point, and I do want to just pick up on something that I did read, a statement from the Minister that came out in the Taranaki Daily News a couple of days ago, which shows that Cabinet papers reveal that the government will need to front an extra $200 million to double the validity period to actually cover the costs of the passport. So the actual cost of the passport sits at around $400. So I think this is really interesting, because Treasury did say to the Department of Internal Affairs that they didn't want this decision made based on financial reasons. But Mr Dunn is in favour of subsidising the passport in order to keep them affordable as a public good. And while I understand that the ability to have a passport and to travel is an important right for a New Zealander, it does seem like an issue that should be discussed at Select Committee, because it does seem at odds with Treasury recommendations. It's also a very good point that's made that the child's passport stays at 5 years, because yes, it is true, children's appearance does change, and a period of 10 years would not be appropriate for them. But the 10 years validity period also throws into the mix another issue, and that's around the issue of technology and how quickly technology does move. I know that our passport with its chip, we were one of the first countries to move to the passport that had the chip, which makes it easier to move through borders. The process is much quicker. But it does also beg the question that 10 years is a long time in the technological world, in our modern age. It is a long time, and technology will change quickly and rapidly over that time. The ability to potentially counterfeit passports, or to find ways to replicate chips in passports in that 10 years, it is a distinct possibility. One of the concerns that I have that I hope that the Select Committee will pick up on is that there won't be the need to see the physical passport in order to cancel it and have it, you can do so electronically on the database. And I'm concerned for a couple of reasons. What concerns me is that mistakes do happen. And it would seem like a useful checking process to have the physical passport in front of you before you actually cancelled that passport. And we know, Sue, from other discussions in this House that databases, including the databases of the government, aren't always entirely secure. And is it a possibility, Sue, that databases can be hacked or manipulated and people may have their passports removed when they're not actually required to? And that does also bring into question the ability for Kiwis to return home should their passports be invalidated incorrectly. This bill also provides for the extraterritorial application of the offence of false application, which I thought was an interesting phrase, but what that means is that when you apply to overseas New Zealand passport officers, it now means that if that application is falsely made, we can now, there is now an offence where that application is made at an overseas passport office. I have referred to the cost of the 10-year passports, but I also I found it really interesting, Mr. Speaker. One of the concerns is around the issue of travel documents, of identity documents, sorry, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to foreign nationals who don't have appropriate identity documents, that we are looking to we're looking to reduce the length of period that overseas national without appropriate identity documents can have down to a period of 1 year. This is an issue that has come up in my electorate a couple of times in the last couple of years around people from Somalia who have identity documents, Mr. Speaker, that that aren't considered valid in a number of jurisdictions, and they're finding it very difficult to have any ability to travel.
Order. I apologise for the member's colleague.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It is very disorderly.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, I was talking about the identity documents for certain groups of people, and we are moving in this bill to reduce the period of time that we will provide identity documents for people who would not, who find it difficult to have their own national identity documents recognised by New Zealand, and I do refer to Somali people, and I know there's some issue with them being able to obtain appropriate documents through UNHCR. Mr. Speaker, I also just want to pick up on a point that the previous speaker spoke to, that 70% of the interactions with government are to go online. And while on the face of it that sounds like a very useful process, it does also flag that there are barriers to those people who don't have access to online facilities. So what mechanisms are to be in place for people who can't use computers, who don't have access to computers, may not be able to afford the internet or cannot access free internet because of remote locations? It does call into question why we would have such a high reliance on our interactions being online. There is also, Sir, again, the issue of security around online interactions and the ability to hack into and manipulate those systems. So just in conclusion, I look forward to the work that the Select Committee will do on this issue, and I hope that they will be able to address some of the concerns I've raised. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.